And in Yellowknife, this is the view from a satellite showing wildfires approaching the city. The closest fires are about 15 kilometers away, and sustained winds of 25 to 35 kilometers per hour are expected over Friday and Saturday. This would push the fire towards the city, with officials saying it could reach the outskirts by the weekend. And just this afternoon, we heard from several federal ministers on the government's response to the wildfires and evacuations. Take a listen.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister convened a meeting of the Incident Response Group. By bringing ministers and senior officials together, we are making sure that we are using every tool we can to aid in this response. I'm also in close contact with my counterpart from the Northwest Territories, Minister Thompson, and have offered any additional support that they might need. The stress of leaving your home, not knowing if it will be there when you return, is a reality now faced by thousands. It is during these dark times that we see our country come together. I've spoken with Minister Ellis in Alberta and Minister Ma in British Columbia to thank them for their support and what they're providing for the Northwest Territories.
The CBC's Evan Dyer has the latest now from Ottawa on the federal government's response.
Well, we did hear today from the Minister of National Defence, Bill Blair, that the first military evacuation flight took place last night and carried 79 long-term care residents from Yellowknife to Edmonton. There are more flights, both civilian and military, scheduled for today. We're aware so far of 21 civilian flights, which are expected to carry about 2,000 people out of Yellowknife today. But we heard also that the federal government is working on chartering more flights, finding other people who are willing to fly in and out of Yellowknife, and we presume the territorial government is doing the same. So it's clear that those flights altogether will reduce the number of people in Yellowknife by about 2,000 if they're all able to make those flights. But there's also a military effort going on parallel to that. Of course, the military is dividing its resources between helping with the fires, fire surveillance and so on, and helping with the evacuation, but it has dedicated 2 Hercules aircraft, which are C-130 slightly smaller turboprop aircraft, not the biggest transport planes that Canada has, one of which did that Edmonton flight with long-term care residents yesterday. So 2 of those, but also 1 C-17 Globemaster. That is the biggest transport plane that Canada has, the biggest used by any NATO country, in fact, and which is capable of carrying a lot of people. The military says it can't really give an estimate of how many people it's going to be able to bring out on those planes because unlike a civilian plane where we know the number of seats per plane, the military configures its seating differently depending on what it has to bring out. Does it have to bring out people in stretchers, for example, if it has to evacuate bedridden hospital patients? Obviously, it could carry fewer, but the C-17 Globemaster is a very, very big plane. Let's bring up a photograph from another emergency evacuation that people will recall. This is the evacuation of people from Kabul when it was falling to the Taliban, and you can see there the inside of a C-17 Globemaster and what it's capable of doing. On that particular flight, the U.S. Air Force brought out 823 people in one plane. So let's listen to a little bit more of what the Minister of National Defence said today when he was talking about what evacuees can expect and trying to reassure them about an issue that we just heard mentioned in reference to the city of Yellowknife, which is the risk of what might happen to their homes, the risk of potential looting, which we're assured so far has not been happening. But Bill Blair did try to give some assurances about that anyway. Let's listen.
We'll be with you there throughout this evacuation, and we'll continue to support you through the very difficult and challenging times. I want to acknowledge how difficult and traumatic it can be for people to leave their homes and leave their communities with the uncertainty and fear that all of that would entail. I want to assure them the RCMP will be in your community to make sure that the evacuation is orderly and that your homes and your community remain safe. We've made exemptions, for example, to allow people to transport their pets because we know how difficult it can be for people to leave them. We will also be there when you arrive at an evacuation center to ensure that you receive the support and the assistance that you may require. There's a long road ahead, but I want to assure you all, we will stand by you in this time of need.
Now, Hillary, the one issue that came up also in that news conference relating to civilian airlines that the government wanted to address today was the issue of price gouging. And of course, the prices that airlines charge for tickets are sometimes driven by automatic logarithms that drive prices up when demand goes up. And so we have seen some pretty high prices being allegedly charged for some of the flights out of Yellowknife and accusations that airlines are taking advantage to price gouge. And we saw that question put to Pablo Rodriguez, the Minister of Transport, today, and he assured everybody that he had called the CEO of Air Canada yesterday the moment he heard about these allegations and had secured an assurance that it won't be happening, that all tickets will be sold at economy rates and that the prices will be capped. So we didn't get too many details on exactly where those prices will be capped or what consequences there might be if the airlines don't stick that promise, but we did hear the government say there would be zero tolerance for price gouging.
Okay, and Evan, we also got a bit of an update, some more information about people who have lost their jobs or their livelihoods even because of those fires. So what can you tell us about that?
That's right. We heard from the Minister of Citizen Services, Terry Beach, talking about people who, for example, rely on disability checks or pensions, but also people who've lost their jobs as a direct result of the fires. Let's listen to what he had to say.
If wildfires has caused you to lose your job, I would suggest that you please submit your application for EI benefits right away. Your application will be prioritized based on your postal code, and you will not need a record of employment. Please also consider signing up for direct deposit. If you're still receiving paper checks for employment insurance, your pension, OAS, this will ensure payments will be made directly into your bank account. We are also proactively reaching out to individuals who are still receiving paper checks, and we're also facilitating replacement payments for benefit checks that may have been left behind or which may be currently in the mail.
And Hillary, one last thing I want to mention, of course, we've been talking about people flying out of Yellowknife, but people have been leaving Yellowknife by road and continue to do so. And the Yellowknife Highway remains open, and they have counted the traffic crossing the Deschaux Bridge, which is about 300 kilometers southwest of Yellowknife, where it crosses the Mackenzie River. The mayor of Yellowknife said that as of this morning, about 5,100 vehicles had left Yellowknife. So we don't know how many people were in each vehicle. Obviously, if you were to imagine an average of 2, that would be about half the population of Yellowknife. So there are still people leaving by road, and the road remains open, and fuel is available for people on that road, we're told.
The CBC's Evan Dyer for us in Ottawa.